morning on the day of the closure, as there was opportunity also to get flights out. And women are set to continue having babies later in life and having smaller families than previous generations, according to ONS projections. The Office for National Statistics says girls born in 2025 are likely to have, on average, one child by the age of 36, while for the generation born in 1951, this occurred by the age of 26. Women born in 2007 are projected to have most of their children after they've turned 30, while women born in the early 20th century had already had most of their children by this time. The latest analysis comes months after the ONS published data which found the fertility rate in England and Wales had dropped to its lowest rate on record. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Michelle.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that, Sophia. I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co with you until 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got my panel, a new face to the programme tonight. Teresa Villiers, the former Tory MP and former Environment Secretary, alongside Matthew Larser, the former Labour advisor. Good evening to both of you. You're very welcome tonight.
Thank you.
As are each and every single one of you at home, what's on your mind tonight? We've got lots to discuss, ladies and gents. In particular, I want to ask you about environmental regulations, so-called green tape. Is it time to shake some of those rules up a little bit? And also, if you get sentenced to 12 months or less when it comes to a prison sentence, should you basically be able to, I don't know, just forget about it, so to speak, and serve your sentence elsewhere in the community? Or should you absolutely be behind bars? Your thoughts on that? Before I get into so-called Liberation Day, what do you think to that Elon Musk news then? These rumours and perhaps that he's going to be stepping down sooner than anticipated?
I've got my fingers crossed because I think I think government efficiency is a good thing, but I think this kind of utterly random approach of just chasing headlines, of, doing things just out of instinct rather than looking at the whole picture has been really damaging to the United States and having international consequences. So my fingers are crossed that without him at the sort of side of President Trump, a little, not perhaps total, but a little calm may ensue.
I think Elon Musk is absolutely fabulous. I've said it many times on this programme. I would love to have an Elon Musk-type figure in the heart of government here and trying to sort out some of the ways that we do things. I will admit, though, some of the stuff that was going on was getting a little bit weird, even for me, I must confess. But notwithstanding that, I think it's absolutely great. I think what's going on with Tesla has been absolutely appalling. How dare you, if you don't like the politics of an individual, how dare you damage the property of other people? All the dealerships, you've seen all of those being firebombed, so to speak. Absolutely disgusting, if you ask me. I've got to tell you, though, good news if you're a Tesla shareholder, though, because they've had a nice little bounce on the back of those rumours. But look, we talk then, don't we, about the US Liberation Day. We've been pontificating for a while about what it may mean for us in the UK. The truth of the matter is, right, no matter who seems to predict and make out that they know what goes on in the mind of Donald Trump, don't believe them, because so many people that reckon they do, they absolutely don't, if you ask me. So the reality of it is, Teresa, we don't really know what is coming our way. We can pontificate about a special relationship all we want, but the reality of it is we're probably going to be hit with tariffs. What should the reaction be?
I don't think we should be retaliating. The escalation of a trade war just makes everyone worse off. In a trade war, it's a classic example. There is no one who wins, everybody loses. I think you're right. Predictability is not a word that we can associate with the Trump administration. I hope there is some way back found from the brink, both for us as an economy in this country, but also in terms of the US relationship with the rest of the world. This is pretty astonishing. It appears to be the biggest tax rise that any US president has ever levied, and it will have a negative impact on the global economy. But also, a problem is that our economy has been weakened since the budget with a big national insurance hit. It means we're less resilient and more likely to be damaged by this overall hit caused by tariffs. Let's listen to our Prime Minister then, shall we? Keir Starmer, of course, he was speaking out and explaining his approach to it earlier on today.
There are constructive talks that are ongoing on a wider economic prosperity deal with the US. That is really important at this moment. We are working with all sectors that are likely to be impacted, and we're guided by our national interest at all times. And that's why we've said we won't rule anything out. But it is important at a moment like this that we don't have knee-jerk reactions, that we are actually cool-headed about this, and that's why we won't rule anything out.
We've got a special programme here on GB News. Patrick Christys will be heading that up at 9 o'clock, so you don't want to miss that. I'll be sitting there with my popcorn ready. People will probably be watching that through their fingertips. But, yep, tonight, 9 p.m, Patrick Christys, Trump's tariff war. Where are you on all this, Matthew Laza?
Well, I think you're absolutely right to call it a war. I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? It's like some sort of terrible game show where we're tuning in to see, you know, how mad what the man who is the leader, the so-called leader of the free world, is going to be. I think that tariffs are hugely damaging for America, and I think they're hugely damaging for the rest of the world, including in the UK. I think the Prime Minister's been right to try and do this middle path and try and not immediately slap back or make sort of bellicose noises and say that he's, you know, up the ante. We've seen that happen in Canada, a very different situation where he's talking about annexing Canada, and also they've got an election, you know, in train at the moment. But so I think keeping it calm is one thing. But if he does stop us with tariffs, and there isn't a sort of, you know, in a week's time, a little out for Britain or a little reduction for Britain, then I think you're going to see anti-American sentiment in this country rise massively, which is hugely depressing for me, because I so believe in our transatlantic alliance.
Give it over. I mean, I think there's a lot of people in this society that walk around in an absolute deluded bubble. Like you're saying, oh, we believe in this special relationship and all the rest. I mean, I don't actually know who sits here pontificating about the special relationship. I don't think Donald Trump does. I literally do not think that Donald Trump, when he got elected, it wasn't, it was all MAGA, Make America Great Again. It wasn't Make America, with a little bit of an add-on for the United Kingdom Great Again. He's primarily focused on his country first and foremost.
Absolutely, but of course any president of the United States is going to put America first, and indeed every president of the United States has put America first, but they understand that you need allies, that you can't, nobody can be friendless in the world, and particularly not a world as dangerous as the one we live in. And we have historically been special relationship, maybe closest friend is a better way of describing it. We have historically been the US's closest friend. If he slaps us with tariffs, if anti-American sentiment rises here, then, you know, we're not going to Britain is not going to want to be as cooperative as it has in the past in things in America's interest. So it will be in his interest to not, you know what, all his good friends.
Well, look, if you think that Labour and Keir Starmer, etc., is handling it so well, why then? How do you explain this poll? I saw this poll today, the More in Common poll. Labour is polling at 21%. This is the More in Common poll, as I said. This is the lowest it's been. So if everything is going swimmingly and all the reactions are the right ones, why so low?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say everything's going swimmingly for the government. I think they've made quite a lot of mistakes along the way. I think they need to do several things differently, and certainly they need to rebuild support, because 21% is not good enough. In third place, you know, who knows, they might be fourth behind the Liberal Democrats. So the government as a whole needs to have a better messaging. I think on the economy it needs to be stronger and more upbeat. But I think on the international stage is the one thing that most people think that Keir Starmer's done better on across the board. That seems to be the thing. He's won some praise from people across the political spectrum for having held the line, I think, is between what Trump's doing and what some of the rest of the world's doing in return.
And Theresa, actually, on this poll, it was the Conservatives that came up top, 26% there for the Tories, 25% for Reform, and that 21% for Labour. Does that surprise you that the Tories are on top?
Well, it's good to see, but then again, it's never wise to invest too much in polls. But it's really quite a shocking poll for Labour, given that only a few months ago it won this landslide victory. And I think it does show that people are really worried about the economy. And one of the striking things about this poll is it predates all the bill rises of this week. So you would expect, if this poll had been done again a few days later, there might have been even more of a squeeze on Labour's vote, because people, I think, are pretty unhappy about the situation with their bills rising significantly and the economy really in the doldrums.
But if Rachel Reeves were here now, she would be blaming all of this essentially on the Tories. She would be saying, I mean, even this sentence makes my eyes roll, but she would be talking about a £22 billion black hole. She'd be talking about the inheritance that she got from the Tories, and she would be pushing back and saying, actually, it's all your fault that she's had to make these difficult choices at the start of this new term for them.
Well, it simply isn't true that there was this black hole. The reality is we passed on an economy which was as fastest growing in the G7. Inflation was down to target. Interest rates were headed down, unemployment was at record lows, and now we're seeing all those numbers going in the wrong direction, and those numbers are from the Office of Budget Responsibility, so genuinely independent. They've been clear that the national insurance rise is going to have a big hit, it's going to increase prices, and it's going to depress wages. And that's a big concern, and that may be why Labour's poll rating has fallen.
Why are you shaking your head, Matt Larser?
Because I don't believe the economy was in such a strong position. We also inherited the highest taxes since the Second World War and a huge debt burden, the cost of which was rising because interest rates had risen. We remember the Theresa May moment of madness. Sorry, Theresa May. I get so many Tory prime ministers. They all blend into one. The Liz Truss moment of madness in terms of the borrowing costs rising and the cost of servicing the debt that Labour inherited has increased anyway.
The Rachel Reeves has just pushed up borrowing. So if you think borrowing was too high when you were elected...
But she has been absolutely clear and she's taken some really tough decisions. Look, I can tell you from my side of the fence, the flack that she's got over some of the decisions that she's made around spending, around benefits to try and keep benefits down, around international development to ensure we can spend more money on defence. They've got her, she's not number one in the poll with Labour members at the moment because there are she's managed to slaughter some sacred cows. I think she had to do that because the country cannot go on borrowing ad infinitum, and what she wants to do is make sure, under her fiscal rule, that there's no borrowing for day-to-day spending by the end of the Parliament. At the moment, she is, she's due to meet that. Obviously, tailwinds like tariffs from across the Atlantic may make that even more difficult, but, trying to restore economic stability, which you didn't have in 14 years of 4 different Tory policies.
What do you make to it all at home? Get in touch and tell me your thoughts. Tolly says, Michelle, we must have a strong USA. If we don't, our way of life in this country will fade away, he says. Interesting. Robert says, no doubt the terrible mess that Reeves and co are making of the apology. They will just blame it on they will blame it on Donald Trump. They will just sit there and say it's not our fault, it's international pressures, and that, he says, will be the excuse. Andrew says, Michelle, Elon Musk might step back, but the Doge team will carry on making great strides. And Mike says, tariffs, Michelle, can go both ways. USA has been carrying the world for long enough. Jamie says, Michelle, if you love Elon Musk so much, why don't you move to America? Well, that would be a bit weird. And you lot would miss me so much. I can admire and appreciate the efforts and energy and optimism and entrepreneurialism and ambition of Elon Musk, and desperately wish that we had something like that in the heart of our government here, in this country. I feel it really strongly. You will have heard me say it all the time. Living in America, though, I just don't think I'd be able to do it to the GB News audience. I think you'd all miss me too much, including you, Jamie. And look, this is my favourite message in so far. Michael says, Michelle, my dad, Alan, has just got home from Watford General. He's been in hospital for 3 weeks following a heart scare, and he's just said now that he's at home, he's really looking forward to watching Dewbs and Co. So please, can you give Alan a shout out? He is in St Albans, so all the very best to you. I'm pleased that you're home and well, and we're very pleased and privileged to be keeping you company. Now, after the break, I want to talk to you about so-called green tape. All these pesky, in many people's minds, environmental regulations that hinder the development in this country, whether it's housing or infrastructure. Is it time to shake them up? I'll see you in 2.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Dewbs, weekdays from 3 p.m.
It's all kicking off in the world of bowling because an historic bowls club could be forced to close after a staggering 2,000% parking fee hike. Members, many of them of course elderly, say they can't afford the jump from 40 quid to an astonishing £840. Now, for some, the club is their social lifeline, but the council insists that the change is necessary to ease financial pressures. Well, of course they would. Well, joining me now to discuss this is the club captain of Eastbourne Parade Bowls Club, Pete Hensman. Pete, welcome to the show. This is an astonishing hike in the car parking costs. It must have simply bowled you all over.
Yeah, to use a phrase, you're quite right. We sort of staggered and worried because of the possibility of closing us.
What's the reaction been within the club to what seems like an eye-watering increase?
Well, as you said, several of our members are saying, we just can't join, we can't afford it. The bus service around here is not particularly good, and they can't carry their bowls or get to the club.
And you've been around since 1897. You've got 70 members, got some wonderful pictures there on screens, look, of people just getting together. Absolutely wonderful thing to do. Healthy, physically, healthy mentally. And, of course, a lot of people lose more friends as they get on. Have the council been remotely forthcoming in seeing the light?
I think they've got a bit of a panic on. We got a message inviting us to join the chairman of the council tomorrow to discuss the matter. I hope we're going to get a compromise.
GB News.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co with you till 7 o'clock. Teresa Villiers and Matt Laza remain alongside me. What Diana says, Michelle, can this country get any worse than what Keir Starmer and his crew are currently doing to us? Well, actually, I don't even want to really respond to that because I do fear that things can always get worse and who knows what is around the corner in this country. But you know what? We can also have a bit of optimism. Can't we? Nothing wrong with that, and hope that actually better days are ahead of us. One of my viewers is just saying, David, well, it all worked, didn't it? Giving Trump his invitation for a state visit. That didn't do anything at all. But you know what? This is the thing. I don't think anybody actually knows what Donald Trump is thinking, and everyone can kind of make out and pretend that they do, but they don't really, do they? Look, let's talk then, shall we, about green tape. The government is planning to cut through some of it when it comes to potential reforms to environmental regulations. This is all about how do you get the balance right when it comes to trying to develop and grow your economy, your infrastructure, whilst also protecting the natural environment and the habitats around us. You used to be the Environment Secretary. Do you think we've got the balance wrong in this country?
I think there are sensible reforms we can make. I mean, there are aspects of Labour's plans on changes to the planning system with which I fundamentally disagree because they undermine local democracy and for all sorts of other reasons.
Like what's the key thing you disagree with?
What's been announced today, the idea of trying to rationalise and streamline some of our rules on protection of the environment and nature, that I do believe that done right, we can achieve our crucial environmental and nature goals and do so in a way which isn't as disruptive and doesn't involve as much red tape as the current rules do. For years, governments wanted to do this, but they couldn't because these are all EU rules. The previous government did start on trying to reform things like the Habitats Directive, which does make is problematic in some ways. So I think the key with today's announcement is the detail. So long as the government is careful to make sure we don't compromise protection of nature, and that is crucial. We have these goals. We're one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world. It is absolutely essential that we live up to the commitments lots of governments have made to protection of nature. But I think we can do that in a way which is more rational than these legacy E rules which we inherited.
The story that many people will have in their mind when they're talking about environmental regulations will be things like that bat tunnel, the £100 million bat tunnel when it comes to the HS2. And many people will have seen, I mean, I remember it doing the rounds on social media when there were all these different people trying to object to houses getting built in their area. They were all advising each other to put these bat boxes up here, there and everywhere to try and disrupt planning. I mean, that's a bit weird, isn't it? £100 million to try and protect bats and diverting train lines and all the rest of it.
Yes, it is. And there are ways in which this can be done better. I mean, for example, the basic principle is that we want to protect a particular species. If your rules allow you to look at the population in a wider area rather than just the site of the development, then you can come up with a solution which protects the wildlife but doesn't cost £100 million to build a bat tunnel. We actually tried to push this through in relation to a set of rules on what's known as nutrient neutrality, which is a type of pollution in our waterways. And we came up with a more pragmatic way to deliver the environmental goal, but unfortunately Labour blocked it. Right. But if we'd been allowed to go ahead with that, it would have released the opportunity for about 100,000 houses to be built.
Blimey, don't get us started on pollution in the waterways. I can hear some of you shouting about that one. Matt, your thoughts?
Well, I think it's absolutely right, and I'm really pleased that Steve Reid, the Environment Secretary, has done this. As Theresa says, it's all about balance. I mean, essentially, it seems to me that we've got into a bit of a stage where, on the environment, almost unlimited protection is allowed. I mean, take this £100 million for the bat tunnel. You know, whenever a new drug is developed for humans, and NICE does it, we're told, you know, that effectively the state puts a price on human life. It says, you know, if this cancer drug costs £20 million to save one life, it's not, you know, we can't introduce that into the NHS. Yet to protect one, not all bats, but one particular, you know, bat colony or whatever the phrase is, it costs £100 million. It seems that it's an unlimited check, you know, because of these rules. So making these rules more sensible is the only way to go. Absolutely, we need to think about the environment and protect biodiversity as much as we can, but we can't do it at any price, at every occasion. It needs to be, as you say, Theresa, absolutely looked at in the round, so we're making common sense decisions, because otherwise you're then risking people just sort of going the other way and saying, you know, that's the environment.
One of the viewers, Philip, he's got in touch and said, Michelle, at the end of the day, just small delays and things like that is a price worth paying, because he's saying it would be an absolutely terrible world without wildlife. But I don't think anyone's suggesting to have any wildlife at all. It's not, I mean, when we talk about hundreds of millions of pounds and goodness knows how long delays and all the rest of it, there's a balance to be struck. And I think Phil is getting a bit worried that it might be going all a bit too far the other way.
And this reform will need the most rigorous scrutiny, both by MPs, but also the environment groups will be all over this, and no doubt any changes will get litigated as well. And that's understandable because, as I say, it is crucial that we protect nature, biodiversity and habitats, not just because it's important to our quality of life, but, for example, if we were to lose our pollinators, we'd add billions of pounds to food production. There are all sorts of ways in which we are totally dependent on natural ecosystems. Therefore, we have a duty to protect them. So the question is, can we do that and still come up with a rule system which is more rational and less costly? I hope the government get it right, but there'll be lots of people on their case to make sure that they don't compromise those nature protection goals.
Sharon, I think you might be one of the people on their case, because you're saying I pay a premium for where I live in the countryside, and now I'm worried that Labour are going to come and ruin it. We need trees, bees, birds, natural water sinks, butterflies and clean air. Do not ruin it, Barry says. On the other side, why on earth are we worried about bats? Well, we don't even have places for people to actually live. And also, we've started something now with the shout-outs, because Gary has said, Michelle, can you give me a shout-out as well, please? I've broken my leg and I'm going to be off for 6 months. And I do love watching GB. You can't go to work for 6 months with your broken leg. You'll have the welfare office knocking on your door, handing out your wheelchairs or something. They'll get you up and working. Gary, don't you worry about that. Anyway, get well soon. Coming up after the break, if you are a convicted criminal, you're sentenced to 12 months or less. Should you be spared jail? Your thoughts on that?
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there. Plenty of sun to be had in the UK over the next few days, but if you're thinking of heading further afield, there are still some thunderstorms across Greece and Turkey, and some very unsettled weather moving through Madeira into the Canary Islands. A showery day to come on Thursday, and then further showers or spells of rain into Spain as well as Portugal. A few showers on Thursday for Italy, but the most showery weather will continue to affect Greece as well as Turkey. That is tending to ease away over the next few days into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Big problems in Lancashire on the M6. The motorway is partly blocked southbound from junction 31 to 30, just east of Preston. There's been a serious accident. And in Derbyshire on the M1 southbound, there are long queues down to junction 29 at the Chesterfield-Mansfield exit after a car caught fire. In Surrey on the M3 southbound, the motorway is partly blocked from the M25 to free at Bagshot, where a lorry's broken down. And in Hampshire on the M27, one lane shut westbound 7 to 5 towards Southampton. A lorry and a van have collided in the roadworks, causing long queues. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello everybody, welcome to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, with you until 7 o'clock. And of course, today is the big day we've been looking forward through perhaps our fingertips to tonight, haven't we? Just about where are we now? 6:30, about 2.5 hours time now until we get this big announcement. We've got a special programme here on GB News hosted by Patrick Christie's, looking at what on earth is going to happen with tariffs and how will it impact us here in the UK, and crucially, how, if at all, should we respond to it? I'll have my popcorn ready. I will be here watching it, and I hope you will too. But look, here on Dewbs & Co till 7, alongside me, Theresa Villiers, the former Tory MP and Environment Secretary, and Matt Larser, the former Labour advisor.
Michelle, talking of America, you know, yes. Jamie earlier on, who said that he thought that you, because you're a big Musk fan, a Musk super fan,
I love him,
that you should go off to the United States. I've thought of a compromise in the break. You don't have to go. We can keep you on GB News, but you can show your love by buying a Tesla.
Buying a Tesla. Do you know, I don't mind Teslas, actually, but I'd be worried now. If I got a Tesla, I'd be worried that some moron tried to set fire to it or key it, then my insurance premium will be going absolutely through the roof. So I think, unfortunately, unless you know, I was to somehow come across a free Tesla and therefore it didn't matter so much, I think that would be no. Also, Jamie, I was thinking about it. If you're just tuning in and you're worried, wondering what on earth's going on, Jamie, one of the viewers, because I do like Elon Musk, I think it's great what he's doing, and I think actually I'd welcome someone similar in this country. Jamie said I perhaps should go and move to America then, but I wouldn't be able to break all of those hearts, all of you that like the programme. Lots of you getting in touch as well. A couple of you are asking, why am I not covering the funeral story about the goings-on in my hometown of Hull? Awful, awful story that is. But there's been a man charged now. I think it's with 64 different things. So, of course, we've got contempt of court rules, which means that, unfortunately, I'm not allowed to debate openly that situation. But don't you worry about it. I certainly will be once that trial has concluded. But speaking then of trials, if someone is a convicted criminal, they get sentenced to jail time. If that jail term is going to be 12 months or less, do you think we should be in a situation where actually judges are going, do you know what, it's probably not really going to have a massive effect to send him or her behind bars. Let's send him to do some form of penalty in the community instead, whether that's house arrest, whether that's being tagged or whatever. The head of the Sentencing Council essentially is saying that we should be considering not sending those people to prison. You're a former barrister. Theresa, what do you think?
I don't agree. I think we should send people to prison for short sentences. There are, quite rightly, lots of safeguards in the system, which means that every judge has to take care to work out whether a prison sentence is appropriate and look at the alternatives. But the sorts of offences which currently can lead to a prison term of less than a year are things like shoplifting, common assault, violating a non-molestation order, criminal damage, carrying a knife. I think people rightly would expect these kind of offences in the right circumstances to lead to a prison sentence.
Matt?
So the Sentencing Council, the body that's come up with this, has not had a good few weeks because I mean, I think we can all agree because that Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, was right to overrule them and say no to their idea of a couple of weeks ago that they were that there was about to be introduced, that they wanted to basically treat people with different ethnicities who were convicted differently and potentially have different levels of sentence because of their ethnicity. Totally daft. On this, I kind of half agree. I think I'm not in favour of a blanket ban on anybody who gets a short sentence serving it. I think there is an issue about the sort of revolving door. People go in for very short sentences, come straight out again, reoffend. We need to break that cycle of reoffending because what it's all about is protecting the public, protecting us all from crime. But clearly, I think there needs to be discretion so the judges and magistrates have the right tools in their armoury looking at the specific circumstances. So I don't think there should be a blanket ban on anybody getting a sentence under a year because that's effectively writing a blank cheque. I think there should be, you know, where appropriate, community sentences can and do work in terms of reducing reoffending rates, which is what we all want. We all want less crime. We want fewer victims.
I was reading about a story earlier on. So when we talk about people that get 12 months or less, I'll just tell you about this crime in case you haven't seen it. So there was a Deliveroo driver, and he was delivering whatever it was to a customer, her house. Upon delivering it, he basically took it upon himself to stick his tongue in the customer's mouth, force his way into her home and sexually assault her. The customer, the lady, she was pregnant at the time. Anyway, that led to bleeding. You can use your imagination as to what might have gone on. It led to bleeding and it led to her having a miscarriage a couple of days later. That guy, ladies and gents, he got sentenced to 12 months in prison. I think that's absolutely disgraceful. So sitting there and thinking about someone like that and thinking, oh, do you know what, he could be in the community, I would actually suggest that many viewers would think that the sentences are not long enough.
What? Yeah, there is that argument to have. If short sentences are not working, maybe we need longer sentences for certain offences. We do need to get better in this country at rehabilitation, but that is not inconsistent with sending people to prison. We just need to make sure that we're better, for example, at dealing with substance addiction and things like that, and that our probation services are properly supported to support people when they get out of prison. There are all sorts of ways in which we can improve our record on rehabilitation, but some kind of blank cheque which says that people, any short sentences are scrapped and people can stay at home under a curfew, I think would be wrong, and people would rightly be really upset about it. And the case you describe is quite shocking.
It's
and the
awful.
thought of someone like that being let off is really quite disturbing.
Absolutely.
Well, so he got sentenced to 12 months, and if I was that lady who'd had that happen to me in what's supposed to be the safety of her own home, that fella's rehabilitation wouldn't mean a jot to me. I wouldn't be able to care less whether or not he went on to go and do it all over again or became a changed man or whatever. I wouldn't care. I would want him to be punished. And when we talk about going into the community and perhaps serving a sentence in the community, if someone was to persuade me that that was the right option, I would want a huge element of shame attached to that. And maybe I'm just being a little bit harsh, but if I want someone, well, I wouldn't want you to serve out your sentence in the community, but if you had to, I would want you to be in a very bright boiler suit. I would want you to have the word criminal, I am a criminal, on your back, on your front. I would want you to be mortified, embarrassed, ashamed, and I would want those feelings to stick with you forever. Am I just being a little bit old-fashioned?
Well, you've been quite tough there, but I think a lot of people would say that if we're going to have more of these community sentences, then they need to be toughened up. But however you toughen them up and whatever people are wearing when they're carrying out the community sentence, it's not the same as being deprived of their liberty by going to prison. And what strikes me about this debate is there's a cycle. Every few years we have this debate, and very often the prison sentences are reduced or short prison sentences become rarer. And then the result is the police and the prosecuting authorities get fed up and they don't want to prosecute these minor offences because people won't go to prison anyway. And then the pendulum swings back and people realise that the prison sentences were the right thing to do originally anyway.
We talk about depriving people's liberty. When I was a teenager, my then boyfriend, he was in and out of prison. I used to go and visit him on the weekend. He never regarded it, I don't think, as being deprived of his liberty. There was a lot of people in that prison that he used to know. He used to get 3 square meals a day. He used to get free gym membership, didn't have to worry about paying bills or whatever it was. I don't really think it used to bother him too much.
He must have missed you, Michelle.
I think, to be honest, he was quite pleased to get away from me, quite frankly. But that's a whole different story, I can tell you. Look, let's talk then about what you need to be doing if you want to try and catch so many of these criminals. You need more police on the beat then. So the biggest police force, the Metropolitan Police, it caught my eye today that they're actually looking at reducing the number of police officers. Well, because apparently budget constraints. Matt Larser.
Yeah, the Met seems to have got itself in a particular mess because so I think it's a bit of a specifically London story with how the Met organises its finances. But yeah, look, we need to get more police on the beat. We still have fewer police per capita because population's grown. When Theresa May was Home Secretary, she cut the number of police. They then went up, to be fair, under Boris Johnson, but then the numbers up. But it's still, because we're a growing population, it's still slightly down over the last 15 years, and Labour is trying to get it back up. It's going to struggle if the Met is in trouble. One little thing that I would do, which I was reading about this week, the Police Chiefs Council say that football clubs should pay the full whack for the security. I thought they already did, and they do pay something. But apparently, we effectively, as taxpayers, are subsidising by £70 million a year policing football, and the vast majority of that, because obviously bigger crowds are the richer clubs. So we're effectively subsidising, the Saudi owner of Newcastle United, or the billionaire owner of Manchester United. We're subsidising their business model by not charging the full whack to police these events. So that would create 70 million quid across Britain. If I was Home Secretary, I'd be doing that tomorrow.
Would you? I'd love to be Home Secretary.
You'd be tough.
I would love to be in charge of law and order in this country. Honestly, I mean, I know you think that you probably think I'm a bit strange, but I would. I'd have boiler suits. I would have criminal written all over them. I would make people feel shame for their action. I don't think we've got shame left in society anymore. And I would have prisons. They'd be like workhouses or something like that. I would make prisoners work. They would get all these new skills. that they could go out once they get released, that have all of these skills and all the rest of it. But luckily for each and every single one of you, I'm definitely not in charge. So the world is a saner place. Gareth has said, Michelle, you wouldn't be able to move to America, whether for Elon Musk or not, because no one would be able to understand a word you say with your accent. Thank you very much for that. Look, coming up after the break, France. Now, who would have predicted this? We often talk about what are they actually doing for the millions upon millions of pounds we send them when it comes to stopping the small boat crossings. Well, now, finally, the French authorities actually admit that they could and should have been doing more.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. For most of us, it stays dry and clear during the next 24 hours. Some patchy cloud turning up, but in the southwest, a very decent weather for Thursday compared with the last few days. Showers start to arrive because of an area of low pressure that's some distance to the southwest. Meanwhile, high pressure to the northeast keeps things dry and clear for most of us. There'll be a bit of patchy cloud forming over the Welsh Mountains, the Peak District, the Pennines overnight, one or two patches here and there elsewhere. But for many places, it's simply a dry and clear night with a keen easterly breeze. In the south, it's going to be frost-free. Further north, less windy. And as a result, a touch of frost to wake up to first thing, particularly for the Grampians, northeast Scotland. Further south, though, a very different start to the day for the far south and southwest. Here, showers start to turn up. These showers are going to be very hit and miss, but yeah, a few drops of rain, marking a change to the drier weather that we've had during the last week or so. But for much of Scotland into Northern Ireland, it's sunny skies from the word go. One exception, southeast Scotland through the Pennines into parts of Wales. That patchy cloud I mentioned, that's going to stick around for the first few hours of the day before eventually lifting and clearing. That leaves most of us with another sunny day. Again, an easterly breeze makes it feel cool, but very different for the south and southwest of England. Here, thicker cloud and outbreaks of rain on and off throughout the afternoon, turning more persistent in places as the day comes to an end. That moves north through Wales overnight into parts of Northern Ireland by the start of Friday, but it really fizzles out by this stage. And into Friday afternoon, well, the sunshine returns for the vast majority, but there will be some low cloud around the east coast, particularly for Edinburgh as we head into the weekend. Elsewhere, the sunshine continues and it stays warm away from the east.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry with you till 7. Teresa Villiers and Matt Lazar alongside me. One of my viewers on Twitter says, can you just quickly ask Teresa, what does she think about building solar panels on prime farmland? Is that a good thing in your eyes or not?
I think it's important to protect food security, and so we have to constrain the amount of solar panels. So, yes, solar panels on certain farmland can be acceptable in some circumstances, but we've got to have rules which do protect as much farmland as possible.
There you go. You didn't tell me what your thought was, the person that wrote in. I don't know if you support that or not, but look, France, we often spoken about how and what they're actually doing or not doing when it comes to restricting the number of small boats from reaching the UK. Well, now Macron's border chief is even suggesting that they perhaps haven't done enough. They perhaps could do more, and apparently, I mean, I'll believe this when I see it, apparently they're even considering taking migrants back from Britain. As I said, won't hold my breath on that one. Matt Larser, your thoughts?
So, look, I think this is a really positive development because I think it shows that our government's putting some pressure on them to actually deliver something for the tens of millions of euros that were, indeed hundreds of millions of euros that were handed over to the French over the last few years. And as we say, we've seen those shocking pictures of, French officials standing by as small boats go into the channel. So I think it shows that we need to work together with the French, but not be taken for a ride.
What do you think to this, Teresa?
Yeah, well, as you say, it doesn't really come as a surprise that the French haven't been doing enough on this. And it's good to see an acknowledgement that the French authorities are acting as escorts while these illegal crossings take place and head into UK waters. But what frustrates me about this situation is we have things like the ECHR and the UN Convention on Refugees, which is increasingly making it harder to control our borders. And that's a problem for so many different countries, and yet we can't seem to get the consensus together to modernise and amend those treaties. They were drafted in the 1940s for a completely different situation.
But then when you guys had your huge majority in Parliament, why didn't you sort it out then?
We were absolutely trying to sort it out by the fundamental principle of breaking the link between getting in a small boat, arriving in the UK and being able to stay permanently. So our Rwanda scheme was meant to remove the incentive, and it was starting to have an impact. We even had ministers in the Irish government saying that people were coming across to Ireland to claim asylum because they were concerned about possibly being deported to Rwanda. Yeah, we should have done more, and that's one of the reasons why we lost the election, because immigration levels were at too high a level and we didn't deliver on our promises on that. But the important thing now is that the international legal system just is not working, and I think we need countries to get together to acknowledge that and to change those treaties so that they enable countries to control their borders.
I mean, I think you're right there, Teresa, that you did lose the election. One of the primary reasons, if not the one, was about loss of control of the borders. But it's got even worse under the Labour Party's watch. It's 40% higher than it was this time last year.
Look, I mean, Keir Starmer promised to smash the gangs. The gangs are still operating. But one thing he did say was it wasn't as easy as the "Stop the Boats" three-word slogan. It's actually going to be a more, it's going to take more time than we were promised.
He's still got a three-word slogan, just a different three-word slogan.
Well, yes, but I mean, but it's not smashing the gangs doesn't mean you're going to smash all. That you're never going to have anybody coming over the channel, which is just completely unrealistic. But there's so much more that can be done. That's why it's good that we're working properly with European partners, not just writing them a blank cheque. That's why it's good the government's talking about offshore processing, so that we, rather than people coming here and then being expensively shipped off to Rwanda, it's people being processed before they ever get anywhere near our shores. And that's why also the government's looking at legal migration, because Theresa talked about the inheritance that Labour got from the Tories. One of those was the highest ever levels of legal migration, which worries a lot of people too. We saw the Boris bounce. People are now going to be in migration. That's now coming through. People are going to be able to apply for indefinite leave to remain because he just basically opened the door in a way that I think was completely wrong, because it just let such huge numbers in. I was in favour of staying in the EU because we had people came here, worked, mostly went back home. So it's a different it's a different ballgame. But we need to get legal migration down. But yeah, the government's going to be tested. If it doesn't smash the gangs, reduce the boats, it's going to be in trouble.
Do you have any fear at all that this government is going to smash the gangs in the same way that actually the last one, as we just discussed, said that they were going to stop the boats? I can't fathom it. If anyone stormed an airport passport control border, you wouldn't get very far. You'd have armed guards literally on top of you in a nanosecond. So many people are absolutely baffled by why we don't seem to be able to have the same level of gusto when it seems to be protecting that channel border. And also many people are very perplexed perplexed why we keep walking around saying how we're desperately going to defend Ukraine when we can't even defend the Channel. It's all very odd, isn't it? Look, the press secretary, the White House press secretary, I like this lady, you know, Caroline Levitt, she has apparently tweeted out saying the so-called SERF publicly stated that Elon will depart from public service as a special government employee when his incredible work at Dewbs is complete. So there you go, Jamie. I don't need to be moving anywhere anytime soon because he's not going anywhere. Val says, Michelle, you seem to be going a little bit soft. You normally would be calling for the death penalty for criminals. I am, you know my views. I absolutely think we should be having a conversation, a national conversation about the death penalty when it comes to the horrendous people that do horrendous things like torturing children when it's absolutely not in any doubt whatsoever that they are guilty. One of my other viewers, I like the cut of your jib. She's saying, Michelle, I agree that you should be wearing boiler suits essentially if you serve your sentence out in the community. She says, I would get them to say, I'm a wrong-un on the back. That is what you are suggesting. I like you. You could come in if I was ever in charge. You could come in, Val. You could be my deputy. I think actually between us we really would sort things out. Look, lots of people, you are very split on that situation. When it comes to Elon Musk, about whether or not you like him. I do have to tell you, though, do not forget, ladies and gents, that if you've been under a rock, you don't know what's going on tonight, 9 o'clock, it's all happening live here on GB News, a special programme with Patrick Christie's Trump tariff war. That is at 9 o'clock tonight. What on earth is Donald Trump actually thinking? What will be the impact to us here in the UK? And the million-dollar question, ladies and gents, how on earth, if at all, should Keir Starmer and the Labour government respond? I'll certainly be watching that, will you? But for now, look, that's all I've got time for. Thank you very much for your company tonight, Matt. Thank you, Theresa, as well. Lovely new face. We like those. You're very welcome again. And thanks to each and every single one of you at home. Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. For most of us, it stays dry and clear during the next 24 hours. Some patchy cloud turning up, but in the southwest, a very different weather for Thursday compared with the last few days. Showers start to arrive because of an area of low pressure that's some distance to the southwest. Meanwhile, high pressure to the northeast keeps things dry and clear for most of us. There'll be a bit of patchy cloud forming over the Welsh Mountains, the Peak District, the Pennines overnight, one or two patches here and there elsewhere. But for many places, it's simply a dry and clear night with a keen easterly breeze. In the south, it's going to be frost-free. Further north, less windy. And as a result, a touch of frost to wake up to first thing, particularly for the Grampians, northeast Scotland. Further south, though, a very different start to the day for the far south and southwest. Here, showers start to turn up. These showers are going to be very hit and miss, but yeah, a few drops of rain, marking a change to the drier weather that we've had during the last week or so. But for much of Scotland into Northern Ireland, it's sunny skies from the word go. One exception, southeast Scotland through the Pennines into parts of Wales. That patchy cloud I mentioned, that's going to stick around for the first few hours of the day before eventually lifting and clearing. That leaves most of us with another sunny day. Again, an easterly breeze makes it feel cool, but very different for the south and southwest of England. Here, thicker cloud and outbreaks of rain on and off throughout the afternoon, turning more persistent in places as the day comes to an end. That moves north through Wales overnight into parts of Northern Ireland by the start of Friday. It really fizzles out by this stage and into Friday afternoon, while the sunshine returns for the vast majority, but there will be some low cloud around the east coast, particularly for Edinburgh as we head into the weekend. Elsewhere, the sunshine continues and it stays warm away from the east.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News travel.
A very good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Long delays of just under an hour continue heading south down the M74 through South Lanarkshire. There was an accident just before junction 5, the Bellshill bypass, the Rafe interchange. All lanes are back open, but it's still queuing back onto the M73. Restrictions in central London on Camden High Street on that one-way stretch following an accident off the A503. In Kent, just south of Tunbridge, the A21 is closed southbound where a car has caught fire. And the M27 in Hampshire seeing long queues, one lane shut westbound, 7 to 5 towards Southampton. A lorry and a van have collided in the roadworks. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's the final week to see how you could spruce up your spring, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag, and not one, but 2 sought-after designer watches. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/.
Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.